I could go back to last year's show, the show from the year before. Ben, please tell me we're buying a striker. We need one. I feel like, and I hope I'm not wrong, I feel like this is the summer that we are going to get that striker. I think the question is, who is it going to be? We kind of felt it was going to be Isak. That seems as if. Then it was Sesko. Now Gyokeres is the topic of conversation. I'll start with the main player that's being spoken about at the moment. Victor Gyokeres felt like he had an 85 million clause. There's rumors that it may be as low as 65 now. Do you think there's potential for Gyokeres to be joining Arsenal this summer?
Yeah, I do. Let's just take a step back, though, and make one thing clear. This is the Andrea Berta era. And there's a key difference because Mikel Arteta, when he arrived at Arsenal, was building a long-term project. And part of that was developing young talent, tying them down to long-term contracts. And it's been obvious, as you say, for more than one window, that Arsenal need a defined traditional number 9. Berta comes in and he's not told to continue the project. He's told to win now. And he's very much of the mentality, go out there and get what you need. So there will be urgency about how Arsenal operate in this window. And Berta and his personality are going to view things internally and in the market a little differently to Edu or Jason Ato. And this is why I think that by hook or by crook, Arsenal will get their number 9 and put a big outlay towards one of the profiles they're looking at. And in addition to that, we know Martin Zubimendi is going to join. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment. A winger, a defender, a number 2 goalkeeper. It is going to be a revamp. And even though net spend is more important, i.e. if there are outgoings, you can balance your outlay. If you only look at what they're going to put towards transfers, and I've said this before and I'll repeat it, it might be in the region of 250 or even 300 million. And when you divide that between what Arsenal need, it is going to be a busy and exciting summer. And I'm always torn when I say this because fans want excitement and names and profiles and improvements. But if you're that busy, you can also make an argument that you've left gaping holes in your squad. So there's urgency and there's pressure at the same time. If you actually shut a window and do very little business, it's because you back the playing squad that you've got. And that actually shows calmness and planning. So now coming on to the number 9, we can start with Gyokeres, as you say. My understanding is the clause is 100 million euros, but there's a verbal pact with Victor Gyokeres that he can leave for about 70 million euros. And Arsenal see that number as market value. And Andrea Berta's come in and definitely bumped Gyokeres up the list of possible targets. And this is why I think that Gyokeres and Arsenal remains one to watch. It's not to say that Benjamin Sesko isn't still there. They've also discussed internally Hugo Ekitike. And then you kind of have the dream target in Alexander Isac. And I think why we might not see all eggs in the Gyokeres basket today, tomorrow, is just because at the end of the season, it will be clearer whether Alexander Isac is genuinely available for a number or whether, if Newcastle have got Champions League football, he becomes completely off the table. And if you're asking me what Arsenal's heart thinks, then it's basically Isac, but they're not going to put down some insane number to get that over the line that stops them doing all the other business they're looking for. If Isac becomes definitively off the table, then you're looking at a relatively straight shootout at the moment between Gyokeres or Sesko. Sesko is the one they've done all the legwork on. Gyokeres is the name that Berta has kind of pushed a little bit further up in their thinking. And that's where we're at the moment. And I agree with you. It feels like Arsenal will get an established big money traditional number 9. It will be one of the first moves that they make after Martin Zubimendi. And now it's just a case of waiting to see how the market moves, because I don't think Arsenal feel they're going to lose out on the race for Victor Gyokeres if they leave it a day, a week, even a month potentially, because that one might take a little bit longer due to the fact the wages are quite high and there's big agent fees as well. It's not like, for example, Liam Delap, where Manchester United and Chelsea both know that each other are willing to trigger a release clause. And then with Isak again, once Newcastle's league position is clear And if they do or don't have Champions League football, suitors like Arsenal, Liverpool, and potentially Chelsea will start to understand whether or not Newcastle's not for sale stance is genuine or just grandstanding. And from there, we'll get a domino effect. And there's so much overlap, isn't there, between all these Premier League clubs and the profile of striker they're looking for. Whoever kind of makes the first move and gets in that first name will be able to rule them out of all the other targets. And that's where you'll see a domino effect, and it will start to be clearer who from this list of strikers all linked with Premier League clubs is going to go where.
So can I just break down what a couple of quick conversations with you on those names then? So with Isac, it's always seemed to have floated about that he is the dream target. Do we think that if Newcastle get in the Champions League, that deal probably comes off the table with him having still got 3 years, I believe, on his contract as well?
Yeah, he's contracted until 2028 with Champions League football. He gets another boost, and Newcastle might even offer him improved terms as well. So it definitely adds a layer of complexity. We also hear this number out there of 150 million as the price that Newcastle are willing to sell for. And all those sources don't entirely deny that figure because it would comfortably be a British transfer record. It's not a number that they're offering to suitors. So a lot of people ask me, can you give me an Isac update? Why isn't there one today, tomorrow? And the answer is because suitors are waiting to be respectful to Newcastle, because if you're going to get this deal done, you need to have a great relationship with Newcastle United Football Club. And approaching them as Arsenal are about to play Newcastle, approaching them as they try and qualify for Champions League football is completely the wrong timing. In addition to that, if this number of 150 million is genuine, it comes from sources and insiders in conversations, certainly that I've had, but it is stressed by those same sources that they're not going out there and giving that number to the market. So if I ask sources about Isac, they say, look, if somebody tabled 150 million, we might sell. If they don't get Champions League, let's see if that number drops. But if Arsenal knock on Newcastle's door today and say, what's the price for Isac? My understanding is they're being told not for sale rather than that number of 150 million. And this is why we're going to have to wait until the end of the season. If Newcastle got Champions League football, they're going to hold all the cards. So Arsenal do view Isac as a dream target, but they're going to have to be patient to understand if he is genuinely available.
Yeah, do you know what? You made a great point there as well with the teams playing each other this week. Arsenal beating Newcastle, making it more difficult for them to get in the Champions League, could actually help them get the player. But yeah, that'll be interesting. Just in terms of Sesko and Gyokeres, I know there's a bit of crossover there, but I remember speaking to you in the winter, and it seemed again like that was the striker that they wanted. So do you feel that Berta is he going to try and slightly change the direction of Arsenal with his appointment? Because like you said, they're talking about win now strikers, and Arsenal were always talking about Project Youth. So do you think Berta's sort of been appointed to say, listen, go and help Mikel, but we want somebody that now can get us over the line? So do you think that's maybe why they're now looking at Gyokeres rather than Sesko, as he seems a bit more established?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And it's probably a point of difference between Edu building a project, trying to find value, and the fact that during the Edu time, Gyokeres was release clause or nothing. So if they pivot to Gyokeres, we can't definitively say Edu wouldn't have done the same thing. It's just during the Edu era, Gyokeres wasn't really on the table. They needed a striker and were trying, obviously, to find the right kind of profile in previous windows. Sesko, they felt, might be available. If we go all the way back to last summer, Sesko was pitched to by Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, and it wasn't as clear at that point that he'd stay another year at Leipzig. And as I've said before, and I think on this show, my understanding is Sesko basically said yes to the Arsenal project over Man United and Chelsea, but then no to the Arsenal project because the secondary decision was it was better to do one more year at Leipzig. They go back again in January because they had need to find a striker. And even if they'd have got Sesko in January, I still think they'd have signed another striker this summer. But again, they inquired as I broke to Leipzig, and the answer once again was a really clear no. And they were respectful of that because it wasn't just about persuading Leipzig. It was about what was doing right by Sesko, who wanted to do a complete season because he thought that was best for his development. So then you get a scenario where Sesko is finally available, but suddenly Gyokeres is. And I think the difference is Berta, like you allude to, is saying, hang on a minute, let's not just get a deal over the line that we maybe feel is 80% there because a lot of legwork has been done on a phenomenal talent, but less proven. Let's see whether there's a box office goal scorer who's already played before in England, who's got insane numbers. And that is your Gyokeres and obviously Isac. And both of them, I think, the feeling is, could come straight into that Arsenal side and get you 20 plus goals. And the last thing that Arsenal will want is necessarily a young profile that they feel will have too much pressure on them, will be saddled by the price tag, because then you're entering into territory where if they don't hit the ground running, everyone turns around and says that was a waste of money. The player's confidence can be knocked. And therefore, there is that consideration over Sesko as to whether he can fulfill that Berta goal of win now, score now, succeed now, trophies now. And I can't emphasize that enough. And I know people listening will say, well, isn't that every football club? But believe it or not, it isn't. Arsenal's culture for the last 5 years has been build now to win. And yeah, they want to win Champions League, Premier League this season, last season, whatever. But there's still an appreciation that you're getting better and better and better and better. Berta's job description has got zero excuses because he's inheriting those foundations. And therefore, when he signs in this first window with a fair amount of financial backing, he will want to make sure that that number 9 is somebody that can immediately get that 20 plus goals. Because if you add to one player in a number 9 position those goals, who's to say that that doesn't get you 15 to 20 more points? And then suddenly Arsenal are in a situation where they're pushing in the mid-90s in a season like this one that they've just had. And you are genuinely contending, if not winning, the Premier League. So it's not to say Sesko is off the table, but new options who are proven goal scorers, including Gyokeres, are now very high in Arsenal's thinking. And we'll have to wait and see what direction they go in. I know everyone wants a clear-cut answer right now, but the honest truth is Berta doesn't know yet. Even last week, for example, he met the camp of Cunha, who is more expected to go to Manchester United. But the fact that he's only just started formally means he's required to have a lot of meetings very quickly in order to make final decisions. And nothing yet with the number 9 for Arsenal as of today, might change tomorrow, is completely black and white because Berta's still taking the time to do full due diligence. And then from there, possibly in the next week or two, Arsenal will make their move. And that's when we'll find out whether Berta's saying no to Sesko and Gyokeres, or whether he's looking at the inherited transfer plan and saying, actually, I agree with you. We've done the legwork on Sesko. Let's move in that direction. And once again, I repeat, Isac will not be off the table until Arsenal can fully establish if he's genuinely available. And they will not be able to establish that until it's clear if Newcastle have got Champions League football.